I had to go through the trials and errors, the ups and downs, and get the bumps and bruises along the way in order to come full circle to where I'm at today. And it took me a lot longer to finally get to a point where I feel at peace. I feel in a place of, I don't want to say zen, but I just feel like, yeah, now I'm finally starting to figure out life. And it's taken me a long time.
Welcome to Fatherhood Voices, breaking the toxic cycle. Dive in as real dads bear all, the mess-ups, make-ups, and every heartfelt moment in between. It's raw, it's real, and it might just change the way you see family.
Welcome back to Fatherhood Voices. And today we're going to dive deeper into the second part of my life. And this is the high school years until the age of about 25 or 30. And just the journey, the struggles, the ups and downs that happened during that time.
Could you tell us more about your transition from 8th grade to entering high school?
So transitioning from 8th grade into high school was definitely bumpy because I'm now in a new community in the city of La Puente, new school. And because of that, just everything's different. The environment's different. The people, I don't have a lot of connections with friends and so forth because I'm a newbie. I'm a newbie at the new school and now trying to navigate through the new school, the new, school district, and also looking to make friends and figuring out where I belong.
How was your experience during your first year of high school?
Freshman year, just looking to make friends and started to make some friends, but unfortunately didn't make the right friends. What I mean by that is got caught up with falling towards what's the word I'm looking for? With the people that maybe weren't, didn't have the best intentions, meaning started to gravitate more towards the gangs and so forth. And a lot of that had to do was because the power that they carried, during that time, especially in the, 87 is when I started high school. And it was either you were a jock or you were a gang member. I mean, there was no in between. There was really or you were nobody. And I definitely wasn't a jock. So gravitating towards the gangs is kind of something that just happened. And a big part of it was because of the bullying that happened in 8th grade. So that's where I found my group, my belonging in that time frame.
Can you share how you initially became involved with gang activities?
Initially just hanging out with them and just going to, the parties in the evenings or the kickbacks, they used to call them the ditching parties. And, I had a car. So now I have a car I'm driving. And so being able to drive back and forth and go to these different events, parties. And that's where it kind of started. It started by just hanging out with them and just gradually led into a deeper dive as the time went on.
How did you balance being involved in gang life with your entrepreneurial pursuits?
From that point, my entrepreneurial endeavors took a hold. They paused for that time period. I was focused more on just trying to figure out my footing, my belonging. The interesting thing was during this transition, I did become an explorer for police department, for the West Covina Police Department. So it's almost like I was living a double life because yes, I was still interested in pursuing a career in law enforcement, but then during the day, I'm in this environment where it was just a very toxic environment, a lot of gang influence and so forth. So then I would, a couple of days a week, I would go to the West Covina Police Department. I was an explorer. And it was just kind of a mixed time, a lot of confusion because I knew I wanted to go down that path of law enforcement. And in retrospect, I didn't really want to be a part of that gang life, but it was just a place where I just fit in. So, that was a confusing time for me.
Can we backtrack a bit? I'd like to delve into how, initially, your involvement in these activities felt fun. Could you elaborate on that?
Go back. Okay. So high school was up and down. Was it fun? I didn't really get the whole experience of what I wanted from high school. Didn't go to a lot of the school dances and so forth because it just wasn't the cool thing to do. And what made it interesting was one of the I'm going to say one of the shot callers or one of the um, guys that had a lot of influence in one of the local street gangs, kind of almost adopted me like as a little brother. And he was a year older than me, but he just carried a lot of credibility because he was a great fighter, and just because of that, a lot of people left me alone because even amongst the gangs, there's bullying that goes on, a lot of animosity, a lot of jealousy, and so forth. So you think you join a gang to get away from that, but then internally there's a lot of politics and so forth. So I remember he kind of took me under his wing, so to speak, and did a good job of sheltering me from a lot of the like the negative stuff, the criminal stuff. I didn't dabble with, I didn't smoke marijuana, I didn't dabble in drugs or anything, and I didn't participate in any of that criminal behavior, going and shooting people or going and drug sales, anything like that. It was fun during that time because it was just a lot of fighting and jumping each other. So we'd go to different high schools, and we'd get out the car and we'd fight with people from the other gang, or they'd come to our school and fight. So it wasn't a lot of like shootings and stabbings. It was more just like fist fighting, like good old fashioned brawling. And then as time evolved through the high school years, then that's when the introduction of the guns and drive-bys became more of a norm. And a big part of that was when Colors came out. Colors, the movie, actually kind of started the almost like that it was okay to go and do drive-by shootings. That was okay. So I think Colors, the movie, was a pivotal point in Los Angeles, and I mean Southern California, because it introduced the drive-by. And from there, that kind of became the norm. So instead of fist fighting and fighting, now people are using guns, and a knife, bats was a normal part of brawling. But once the introduction of guns came, it just became a whole different animal. And yeah, so it just, as I went into my sophomore year and junior year, it just got more intense. And here I'm still trying to balance, doing the right thing, shelter myself from all the real deep dive negative aspects of the criminal gang, but just kind of being more of a, I want to say just more from the outskirts, just kind of hanging out and so forth. The police, the gang teams from the sheriff's department, they got real, started cracking down. So they started coming to the school and identifying everybody and sharing information with the school authorities. And then from there, they just started this whole series of expulsions and just starting to get rid of people and moving them to other schools throughout the district and even outside the district. So there was a time when I was at high school where there were literally hundreds of gang members at the school. So during lunchtime, you'd literally see them all on one part of the lunch area, hundreds of them. So, and that's how big an influence that gangs had during my time at La Puente High School.
So it seems there was a significant shift in gang activities across various high schools, right?
They were shifting. They were trying to break it up because, in La Puente, there were different cliques, you call them, or different neighborhoods. So you could have, from the local gang, you could have 10 different neighborhoods from that one main gang. And they were all, a big bulk of it was at La Puente High School. And then from there, so they were trying to break it up and send people to the continuation schools, send people out of the school, and so forth, just because the problems were just becoming a lot more intense. And it was drawing in, now other gangs were coming to the school too. And it was causing, fights in the parking lot and so forth. So it was just an ongoing occurrence. We were going to other schools were coming here, and eventually it went from fighting, then there was occasional gunshots and then occasional stabbing, and it just started intensifying.
How many different high schools did you attend during that period?
So I went to three. I had to leave La Puente High School, and from there I went to Cal High, which was in Whittier. Now that only lasted, I want to say, a week, because the funny thing is, coming from La Puente High School, there was a big gang population at Cal High that they bust in from Southside Whittier. Um, and I remember it was open campus and meaning the open lunch. And the first day I got there, of course, being from La Puente High School, and probably my dress attire was not the correct way. I ended up getting chased by literally like 100 people from an opposing gang down the street when I was trying to go get something to eat. So that didn't last very long. So from there, within a couple of weeks, they shifted me out and I went to Pioneer High School. Now, an interesting thing there was there I did meet a counselor. I think she worked in career opportunities, but her husband was one of the coordinators for the Sheriff's Department Explore program. And we started talking and just talking about my background, kind of what I wanted to do. And she saw something in me. She saw that, I was a good person. And so she put me in contact with him. And I ended up becoming a explorer for the Sheriff's Department at Norwalk. So during this transition, so yeah, it's just kind of a whole roller coaster of how these high school years played out. Then I ended up at Pioneer High School. And the thing about that was, now at Pioneer High School, yeah, there were gangs, but gangs wasn't the big thing. It was party crews and car clubs. And so now I got to truly experience high school, because now I joined this party crew and they were throwing underground parties and we would go to events and we'd have these shirts. It was called Gentleman at Time. And we would throw parties. We'd be on these flyers. And this is when the whole cruising and on Whittier Boulevard, and we'd go out there and they were called the spots and the hangouts after the party and stuff. So now, and I have a car. So now I'm getting a whole different experience, now kind of putting that whole gang bullshit aside and really having fun and meeting other party crews and girls and stuff that I didn't get exposed to in my early years. Now I'm just having the time of life. It's like a complete 360. And from there, ended up joining a car club. So now I'm in a party crew and a car club. And it's called Unique Impressions in Whittier. Got a truck, fixed it all up. Now I'm cruising Whittier Boulevard and stuff. So now having a whole different experience. And then joined another party crew, second generation. And yeah, just a whole 360 from gangs to party crews to car clubs. And now I'm getting this whole like high school experience in high school and then outside. So I ended up graduating from Pioneer High School, which probably was one of the best things that could have happened, because had I stayed at La Puente High School, it probably would, no, I know it would have ended tragic, because unfortunately I was getting pushed deeper and deeper in, because I was getting to the point of no return. And especially at La Puente, before I got exited out, there was a friend of mine had gotten killed, and there was a big shooting that happened. And that sparked a series of events that led to me not being able to be at La Puente High School anymore.
What were the initial turning points that led you to start moving away from that lifestyle?
A big part of it was just being out of the environment. Now, even though I still lived in La Puente and stuff, and I was going to school in Pioneer, I just got consumed with a new lifestyle and then working, and then I went to start working in order to make money to build out this truck that I had. So for this car club. So it was a combination of now work, and then I wanted to party, and then, girls and so forth. So that just kind of took up my time. Still kept in contact with, friends from the neighborhood and so forth. But for the most part, I was just so consumed with, and then drive time to school from home was about 30 minutes. And then now my life was over there towards Whittier, Montebello, East LA area. So it kept me occupied that I no longer gravitated towards, the crap that was going on in La Fuente. That was, the parties with the gangs and so forth. So it was, it was a big distraction, and then work too. And I was growing up, then I was back in the Explorer program, and I knew that that's not something that I wanted to partake in anymore. Never something I wanted to partake in. It was because of the bullying that really started that journey.
How much time did you spend participating in the Explorers program?
On and off for, I would say, about 5 years, 5, 6 years. And actually, when I was at La Puente, I had to leave the Explorer program because my gang involvement was exposed. And so I actually got removed from the program because a school called the West Covina Police Department. And so, yeah, I had to leave that. So I was kind of bummed about that. And then I had the second opportunity to now join the Explorers again.
You faced a significant tragedy during your senior year. Could you share some details about what happened during that time?
Yeah, this happened in East LA on Hubbard Street in 1991. And I had met someone, and she lived out there, and she had a small 1-year-old son. And one day I went to go visit her. And now I was, in the car club. I was dressing normal, and we were outside on the patio, and a car pulled up. So she was renting a room there, and in that house, the owner's kids were from a gang in East LA, and a car pulled up, and they mistaked me for somebody from that household. They fired something like 40, 50 rounds uh, um, at me and her, and the little boy. She had a little boy. And fortunately, she was shot in the head, and she passed away right there in the porch area. And that was a pivotal moment because that really defined. Uh, and although I'd seen a lot of life and death just in my years at La Puente High School and just what was happening in the community, but just right there in that moment to see that, uh, I don't know, it was just like in that moment, and then grabbing her son and taking him down and sheltering him so he didn't get hit. I don't know, it just brought back a lot of memories. It brought back a lot of, wow, this is real. Like, people actually die. It's when it really hit me. And from that point forward, after that, I really made the shift that I really wanted to dive deep into going into law enforcement, and really jump back to the entrepreneurial spirit, and get away from all the bullshit. I didn't want to dabble in party crews anymore or the car clubs or anything. I just want to get focused on.
How did this event influence your next steps? What direction did you take following that incident?
The next step for that was just get serious about making money. It was to go back to school, start school, community college, and start to look at what my career was going to be. It was going to be law enforcement. And if I wasn't able to do that, then I was going to go into entrepreneurship, into business. And that's what I did. I dived deep into community college and working 2, 3 jobs and just really getting focused on what I needed to do.
Would you like to discuss your experiences and perspectives related to law enforcement?
I actually started working security. I started working security at the West Covina Mall, started working security at nightclubs, and some of these clubs, people are the Baby Does, Florentine Gardens, Fantasia, Caddy. So all these popular clubs. Back in the day, I worked for a company that had a contract with these different clubs. So I got to work at all these 18 and over clubs, even 21 and over clubs, and got my permits, my gun permit, my baton, mace, and so forth. And that was my trajectory into law enforcement. And then I ended up getting hired as a reserve police officer with LAPD. And that was a challenge in itself, just going through the background and having to share a lot of transparency, what I'd gone through and so forth. And fortunately, I was able to pass that, went through the academy, became a reserve police officer, and that started my transition into law enforcement with the LAPD. And came in at a time when right when the Rodney King riots exploded. And so that was an interesting time. But yeah, that was my career in law enforcement. It started from working security and then transitioning to becoming a reserve police officer. And then from there, it just kind of went from there.
When did you begin your involvement in politics?
Politics happened accidentally. And it happened when I was working. I had gotten hired by the school district, Walnut Valley Unified School District, to work security. I was working security actually while I was just finished up the academy at LAPD. And then I put myself through the Riverside County Sheriff's Academy to make myself a better candidate. So I remember I was working at Dime Bar High School security, and I wanted to shift my schedule like an hour just to be able to go to classes. And my supervisor wouldn't let me. So I went to the union because I was a classified employee. So there was something called the California School Employees Association. I went to the union to ask if they could intervene. They intervened, were able to get my schedule changed. And then from there, and I was only 19 at the time. I felt in debt to them for helping me. So I started going to the meetings, the union meetings. And then an opening happened and they needed someone on the board. So I joined the board. And then from there, I just got integrated into the negotiations between the classified employees in the school district, and got along with one of the assistant superintendents and started exposing me to negotiations and this win-win negotiating that they were bringing in for the certificated teachers union and also the classified union to negotiate contracts, bargaining unit, and salaries and so forth. And then lo and behold, I'm not even 20 years old, and I got elected to be president of the union for CSEA. Actually, I think it was 19. So now I'm the union president for 800 classified employees, not even old enough to drink. But I'm making these decisions and participating in these meetings. And I just happened to see a clipping in a newspaper that the city of La Puente was interviewing people for the police commission or the police community relations committee, something to that effect, and then the planning commission. And I said, oh, wow, well, I'm looking to go in law enforcement. I'd already started working for LAPD, and I applied and I got selected. So I got selected to be on this, I'm just going to call it police commission. And we were an advisory to advise, kind of a go-to between the residents and the sheriff's department and then the city council on different matters and so forth. So we would meet once a month. And from there, I got to know some of the city council people, and one of the city councilmen, he took me under his wing. His name was Ed Chavez, and he was an aspiring politician that went on to the assembly and so forth. And he just saw something in me, and a seat was coming up. And they asked, and oh no, actually, take it back. So then from there, planning commission seat came up. And it's almost like the planning commission is the next step in order to the city council. I got onto the planning commission for the city of La Puente. So now I'm on the planning commission, still young, and now making decisions on permits and zoning issues, and really, really liking the whole political, just the education I'm getting. And then from there, 2 seats were opening up on the city council, and this was about a year later. And so then, two of the existing city councilmen jumped behind me to endorse me. And I don't even think I was 21 at the time. I ran for city council, and there were 13 candidates, and I was the number one vote getter in the election, came in first place, and won a seat on the city council. And that started my trajectory into politics. And then from there, started really jumping into wanting to make the city a better place for the youth, and to tackle the issue with gang, tackling a lot of controversial issues that normally they didn't want to address.
How long did this phase last? Was it around 2 or 3 years?
So I was
a union all the way to.
So by there I had transitioned and then when I was working at school district, then I ended up getting hired by the school police for the Walnut Valley Unified School District. So I transitioned from security into the school police. Now I'm not doing the union stuff anymore. I'm in politics now. And not only am I in politics, but now I'm starting to really get noticed by a lot of influential legislators up in Sacramento because I'm so young and I'm making these connections with these movers and shakers that are really moving the whole Latino caucus and wanting to empower Hispanics, and started getting on these committees and boards that just gave me a lot of exposure. And then over the next, so it lasted, I believe it was a 4 or 5 year term, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, was in politics, and in that term ended up, we did a rotation of mayorship. So then I became the mayor about midway through my career. So it was definitely, it was fun, but it was also challenging. And looking back, I didn't have the capacity, meaning to understand the power that I had, and I think with that I made some poor choices because for a big part of my term I was a swing vote. So there were two on one side, two on the other side, and then it was me, and I had the ability to really influence the direction of the city for like the first 3 years, and with that came a lot of power because my vote kind of dictated what the policy and what the vision was for the city. And now looking back, it's like, wow, I really could have played that more to an advantage to make sure I got a lot more of my projects done.
Could you share more about the challenges you faced during your time in politics?
Challenges was a lot of people just because I was young, saying like, no, you're not experienced and you've just been bought or you're just a puppet and so forth. So I was really trying to create an identity for myself. And I became a voice of the people. And that's where I did get a lot of support from the boosters, a lot of the football boosters and different community organizations and little leagues and so forth, because my agenda had to do a lot with empowerment, wanting to build a youth center and wanting to beautify the streets and signage, and then attracting new businesses. I worked with a good friend of mine to bring in some studio scouts, and we ended up filming some movies in La Puente. Halloween, I forget which one, 5 or 6, was filmed in downtown La Puente, and a couple other movies. And we were able to source out Hollywood scouts to identify spots to be able to put it on the map. So that was some of the positive, but then the negatives of just people think I was using this as a stepping stone to go into higher office. A lot of people thought I was using it to get into higher office. And when I first got in, absolutely not. I was just enjoying the ride of being in local politics. But as I dived deeper into it and got exposed more to the regional and state politics, then at that point, I knew that I wanted to go into higher office. And towards the end of my career, I was actually running for the state assembly.
Wow, that's quite a journey. Could you discuss some of the roadblocks and triumphs you encountered along the way?
Ah, the roadblocks was just a lot of criticism. A lot of people just always attacking me because of who I was aligned with or who I hung out with, or trying to bring up my past, uh, ties to, first I was, hung out with these guys from the street gang, and now I'm in politics. And so there was a lot of talk of corruption and so forth, and what I was really doing there. So had to face that uphill battle, and then also had to kind of create an identity of my own that here I was here for the people and so forth. And I made it a point to be a voice of the people. That's what I wanted to be. And of course, that alienated a lot of developers and so forth because I wasn't so much developer friendly as I was people friendly. So really respecting the rights of people and their properties and so forth.
While active in politics, what challenges did you encounter in both your political and personal life?
The obstacles were just, getting a lot of attention from the media and so forth because I was so young, and some of the policies I was pushing. There was a time when I was actually pushing for gang injunctions because I wanted to stop the fighting that was going on. It wasn't so much um to hurt anybody as much. It was just to we were just experiencing a just such a high surge in gang violence, and now there's guns involved and shootings, and people are dying in the streets. And so I remember going to Gloria Molina, who's on the board of supervisors. I was very good friends with one of her deputy field directors, and talking about wanting to do these gang injunctions, and she just kind of snubbed it off. So we almost had like a verbal war through the newspapers and stuff. And from I was actually mayor at the time, and from that, me feuding with her led to my colleagues saying that I wasn't representing the city correctly, and then taking me out of my mayorship role and putting back city council. And that was an ongoing feud that I had with Gloria Molina, because I was trying to implement these gang injunctions, and I thought it was just such bullshit. To this day, that still rubs me the wrong way. But yeah, my heart was in the wrong place. But I guess she didn't want somebody from local politics pushing an agenda that is something that they should have been dealing with, but chose not to. So yeah, we won't even go there. But also from that, just poor choices I made in my personal life. In addition, just poor choices I made in my personal life, and allowing my anger and just this power that I felt that I had, um, which led to this big criminal court trial, which almost ended up sending me to prison for the rest of my life. And with the gracious of God and the truth, an amazing team, I was able to beat that case, which kept me out of prison, believe it or not. And it had nothing to do with corruption or bribery. It had to do more with power and a district attorney that really wanted me bad. Like, this was going to be her way to make her way in the DA's office, was to go after me and exaggerate these charges.
Moving on to your family life, how did these obstacles impact your home and family?
So obstacles, my daughter was now 2 years old. I'm in politics. I have all this influence now, and becoming a mover and shaker in the San Gabriel Valley and in local and regional politics. And it impacted my family, because I really didn't have a relationship with my daughter. And that's one thing that I do regret, is I wasn't there for her the way I should have been. It was just, visits a couple times a week, short visits, because I was so busy with trying to build my career, trying to build my political career, trying to build my law enforcement career, trying to focus on school. So I didn't have time. If I didn't be completely honest, I just didn't have time. I didn't have time for her or her mom. And it's sad to look back on so much I missed out on. It's, my priorities were misaligned. And when I should have been focusing on my first daughter, her, Alyssa, instead I was more focused on my career, education, and making money than her. So that's something that to this day I regret.
Looking back at your past experiences, how have they influenced your personal philosophy?
Reflecting on my past, now it's definitely shifted it, especially because my spiritual awakening, 4 years ago. So if I could go back and do things differently, I would have created more of a balance. But at the time, you don't know any better. You just know what you think is the right thing to do. And for me, it's like my way of providing was financially. And it wasn't emotionally or being there physically, but it was like, no, I'm giving you money what you need for food, for clothing, to go to classes, workshops. That's how I provided. But now looking back, it's like, no, she wanted my attention. She wanted me there, playing with her. And not to say that there weren't moments. There were a lot of moments where we spent time together. But I missed out on so much. Missed so much of her life.
As you look to the future, what are your aspirations, and what advice would you offer to other fathers going through similar life experiences?
So my advice for fathers that especially have young children is, yes, it's important that you want to build your career, you want to better yourself, you still want to balance a time of friends and having fun. But especially if you have kids, don't forget about them. They want you there. They want you there. They want your presence there. They want you there to play with them, to teach them things, arts and crafts, take them places. It's creating those memories and experience that are really shaping them for who they become. And granted, I'm not saying to put aside your career, to put aside schooling, absolutely not. But it's just learning to balance and navigate. And now with the power of the internet and online classes and working from home and so forth, there's a way that you can balance. There's a way that you can balance it. But you just have to be more laser focused on how you juggle that. And you can juggle family and career and work life, and you can find that balance. You're just going to have to really make sure that you align your priorities.
As we conclude, do you have any final reflections on this particular phase of your life?
Closing thoughts was, when I look at it, people have asked me before if there's anything you could take back, would you take it back? And looking back, it was part of the journey. It was all building character, everything, the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, they were all just lessons. They were all just lessons. Lessons to better myself. It's things that I had to go through. My mom, dad, people could have maybe tried to veer me in a different direction, aunts, uncles, friends, but it's just, I was stubborn. It's my journey. I had to go through it. I had to go through it. I had to go through the trials and errors, the ups and downs, and get the bumps and bruises along the way in order to come full circle to where I'm at today. And it took me a lot longer to finally get to a point where I feel at peace. I feel in a place of, I don't want to say zen, but I just feel like, yeah, now I'm finally starting to figure out life. And it's taken me a long time, but I'm now finally in a place where I'm happy that I'm on this new part of the journey. They say that, with wisdom, you get wiser. And I truly understand that now, because as I've gotten older, and I really fought getting old, but age was a big thing for me for a long time, and not want to acknowledge my age. But now realizing that everything was just, there were lessons teaching me, there were building blocks on top of building blocks in order to get me to this new place where now I can start to repair the damaged relationships that I've created. But then also, now that I have a granddaughter, it's to expose her to the type of parenting that I wasn't able to provide. And it wasn't, and let me take that back. It was not that I wasn't able to provide. I chose not to provide. And that's a choice that we have to remember, especially for fathers. You have the ability to provide, but it's a choice. It's a choice that you make. You can choose to spend time with your kids, or you can choose to go hang out with your friends. You can choose to work 2 or 3 jobs, or you can choose to spend time with your friends, or with your children. And I can go on, but it's a choice. And yeah, you can say like, no, but I have to. No, bullshit. The only thing you have to do is you have to learn to spend more time with your children.